For your immune system to work, the whole of you needs to be well. And today we explore whole being health with the wonderful Shalani McCray.
Shalani, hello.
Hi, Alex. Nice to
I
see you.
yeah,
I'm now used to seeing you in person on a regular basis.
I know. So lucky to have our regular catch-ups. And you are someone I still remember. It was probably about 12 years ago. We were both helping out at the gorgeous Kitz's emporium, when she used to make those beautiful macaroons and do the gaps practitioner trainings and things. And we were both helping her out that weekend
Yeah,
at a conference.
feels like a whole other lifetime.
It does. And I remember very distinctly when then you tried 12 years ago to talk to regular people about any of the things that we were interested at that time, we were genuine crackpots. And I just want to take a moment to celebrate how far the movement towards a more holistic approach to health has come. And it's hard for people to see the positives if
Yeah.
you're just coming in now. But we are testaments to the fact that we have come a really long way and a lot more people care than they used to, right?
And it's an interesting thing too, because it can be all so overwhelming and when it's new to you and all of that. But it is it's staying the ground or whatever to make it become, and I think you talk about this a fair bit, that it becomes your new normal. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have come such a long way. But I mean, sometimes though, I think like I don't know how much people know about me, but I was around and then I had to step back for a while for life circumstances and coming back in now. And I think we tend to be in our own little, not bubbles, but we are the sum total of the people around us and they're the conversations that we have and all of that. And it's been quite surprising to me, I guess, coming back into it, talking to people now, reading what people are saying on social media, which is a lot sort of more prevalent now than when we started out, and realizing how many people are still only just realizing now. A lot of this
There's still a long way to go, which is exciting. Like, I mean, I want to show up for the work. So
Absolutely.
And I think it needs more of us who have the breadth of years and experience of seeing contextually what is actually genuinely healthy for people.
Sure.
Versus what grabs people's attention in a 30-second social media post. My son actually said, "Mum, you have to do something much more grabby at the start because the average watch time for Reels is only 8 seconds."
Right.
And I was like, oh, God. And then I had this moment where I was like equal parts horrified that I might have to pander to some sort of such a formulaic approach to sharing information. And at the same time, why did my son know this? As a mom, I was like, that's not something important to know. But then is it for his generation? So it's a really interesting time.
On technology and how to utilize it and manipulate it and whatever. But on that too, when you brought up your son, I was just about to say too that for us, I think another really important thing is that it can feel all overwhelming, especially for those with young children. However, what I'm seeing now as a newly minted grandmother is, and having been doing this for a good 20 or so years, is that, or being in this mindset or space, is the little things that come up in your children.
Yeah.
That you wonder, is it all worth it? And little things that come up with them that make you go, yep, it was all worth it. Like little things that they say as adults now and the way they're raising their children and things like that. Not perfect, and there's a lot of people like, not horrify me, but I'm like, wouldn't make that choice. Something there or whatever.
Yeah.
But on the whole, it's been a gift for that generation and now the next generation with my grandchildren and whatever. So it's important what we've done, and as you say, celebrating it is really important because it's for the generations ahead. you know.
Yeah, 100%. I had exactly that kind of a little moment this morning when Seb said, Mum, I need a bit of extra protein for breakfast this morning because it's a really physical day and I'll take a couple of pieces of fruit. I was like, oh, lovely. What a great idea. Couldn't have put it better myself. So, yeah, you're right. Those little things that you share and say do get in there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're talking about immunity today, principally because it's a change of season. Here we're coming into winter, but a lot of people listening will be going into their summer. And I kind of wanted to start by asking you, why is it when seasons are changing that we seem to be at our worst? It's almost like once winter has settled in or summer has settled in, it's not as bad. Well, certainly not if you're not part of the elderly population. But is it change that actually disturbs our immune resilience?
So look, there was a time when it was a little bit more glaring that get into the cooler weather and as a naturopathic practitioner, you know, I'd start in about March saying to everyone, all right, we've got to start fortifying ourselves and getting ourselves ready for this colder weather, what they call the flu season, which I'm like, no, there's only 4 seasons. It almost sets us up that we're going to get sick. I think basically it's more the reason then it was happening was because, you know, we're not outside as much. We're in more in enclosed spaces. We're not moving as much. We're not connecting as much. We're not, you know, those sorts of things. But having said all that, I don't believe now, and that's what we're noticing clinically, both in medicine and traditional, is that delineation, I guess, from season to season of illness is really blurred.
Wow. And so you think one of the attributable factors is the more indoor life, potentially.
Potentially.
But we can't say scientifically.
No. I think that it's more our overall constitutions.
Interesting.
That now we're seeing, like, I mean, we've been through summer where so obviously we're talking about Australia at the moment, but this translates to other countries as well, is that we were having outbreaks of different things throughout summer. And that's been increasing. So it's not only what we've been through since 2020 is definitely a big contributor because everyone took a hit in a big way. And when I say hit, I mean it's the whole weakening of the organism. So one of the things, like, I'm really clear about, yes, we're talking about immunity here, but I don't any longer separate the immune system or the gastrointestinal or whatever, because we are one organism. And I think that is one of the things that has really buckled modern medicine, is how they've reduced it, like that real reductionist, into there's someone you go to just for your hand.
Yeah, different compartments.
And now with traditional medicine, you know, we are going that, well, it has gone that way too. Oh, this is my niche and this is my specialty. I'm not criticizing it at all. It has its benefits, but I think we then still go into that whole focus of the one area and forgetting that we're the whole organism. And there's so many things that affect that whole organism. And that there's that domino effect too, that whatever you do to one part of it is going to have an effect on the rest. Not one part of our body exists in isolation or functions in isolation. So, yeah, so to go back to the seasons and whatever, yes, we with the change in season and cooler weather and all of that, the whole organism is affected by things like being indoors, being in closer proximity, probably being this, you know, our spirit is weakened quite a lot. Even for people who love cold weather, your whole spirit is weakened, and all of that and if we tend to not live with the flow of that. We don't you know, live into this cycle and this season and doing the thing, like, well, no longer do we. Like, even with things like with the food we eat and whatever, you know, we will still be looking for the food that is not in season to eat, because I don't know, we got used to always having our smoothie or our whatever it is, and we have to do that every day. It's just things like that. So not living in season, but also the fact that we're overall generally, I believe, weaker as individuals.
And you mentioned COVID and how everyone's system took a hit. Is that primarily because we lost our socialization, our biodiversity, in that sense of like coming into contact with lots of different people? You know, obviously a ton more blue light because a lot more people were inside for a lot longer than they normally would be. Are there any other bits that we need to think, oh, I've got to consciously make sure I bring that back?
My biggest word is connection. It's connection to ourselves, to each other, and most importantly to nature. Nature being the sun, as you said, the blue light. That to me is probably the primary area I'm focusing on, and seeing the hugest results for really the minimal, the biggest bang for minimal buck, really, of time, effort, money, whatever.
Cheap healthcare, yeah.
Yeah, it will cost nothing. And as I mentioned when we were talking before, like first thing, I'm out at looking at the sunrise. I've been in the water, whatever. They're all things that like my day has to start with. And within and the people I'm working with now, within days we notice a difference. But yes, the isolation thing of our with each other is really important, but also with the environment, with pathogens, with, you know, all the things that we're meant to be fearful of are all really natural in helping to fortify our bodies and strengthen them, and the fear of illness, to be honest, because illness it's like a cleansing process. It's, you know, regardless of whether it's a gastro type thing or a flu-y respiratory type thing, it's all like a cleansing and a detoxifying, which our bodies do so beautifully naturally. But there's so much fear around it and so much suppression of those natural processes. So I think if we can get our heads around that too, it's really, really helpful. But it's hard because I'm a really fast time now and a really demanding time now. Both parents, like we're children are concerned, both parents working, having to pay daycare fees and all those sorts of things that we're not taking the time really to allow our bodies to do what they need to do to strengthen. And as a result, they're weakening more and more and more. So have you heard of I'm going to keep going.
Go for it.
Have you heard of the Pottinger's cats?
Yes, of course.
Where the generations just got weak. I really feel that's the trajectory that we've been on, and it's not all is not lost, because as found, for those who don't know, basically he was a dentist, Pottinger, and he had these cats, and he actually wanted to prove that raw meat or something, I think, was the best thing for them. But anyway, he fed them an unnatural diet, and each generation got weaker and weaker. And when he fed them, went back to with this really weak generation, and the generations got weaker, meaning that the female cats couldn't carry pregnancies, or that the pregnancies that they did carry, the babies, the kittens, whatever, had
issues and
health issues and whatever. But when he changed those, that generation that had all the issues, changed their diet and their circumstances and whatever, they gradually with generations improved their health. So all is not lost, like as in we can do something about it. And this goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning of sharing this information and whatever. But it is I'll admit it is simple, but not easy.
No. Well, we're literally going against the status quo, trying to do the right thing.
That's it.
And I think Brene Brown is the researcher who shared that that's the single hardest thing for a human to do is a different thing to all the people around you.
Exactly.
Which I think is why we all end up then finding each other
Yes.
in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Because you know what you need, and then so you go and find other people who want that too, because it's much easier to say, do you want to catch up for a sunrise walk with a girlfriend who sees things a similar way than the one who's always trying to invite you out for cocktails.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with my friends who love cocktails.
Out.
Nothing wrong with that on occasion, but it's about that kind of, it's the 80-20. I really do believe there's a lot to be said for 80-20, and it's why I say we do what we do most of the time, so we can go with the flow and just not care so much some of the time.
But I think that as we've got more exhausted, basically, that 80-20, it can be easy to keep going, this is my 20, this is my 20, this is my...
Yeah, you've got to be careful. I 100% agree.
You know? And I hear it in the conversations, in consultations, or just in some of the groups and things like that, that everything is suddenly becoming the 20.
The 20 is the 80. We can't have that.
Down, yeah. And again, none of this is criticism. It is just the way it is, you know. It's so understandable when there's so much coming at us, and most importantly, when we've lost the connection of those things that are important with ourselves, with each other, with nature and whatever. It's just exhausting and overwhelming. It really is. And, you know, I don't have any answers, to be honest, of what to do about it, because I think it's very individual. One of the biggest learnings I had by stepping away and coming back in, was part of me stepping away too, was I was managing a clinic for people with neurodegenerative diseases. So your Parkinson's, your MS, your MND, things like that. And so I was working full time and traveling, because we were living your way at the time, and was where I'm now. So that was peak hour traffic and all of that, and trying to maintain all the values that I had been telling everyone about, you know, with diet and with relaxation, and, you know, all of those sorts of things became a whole lot harder when I was spending 3 hours in peak hour traffic a day.
Yes.
And I only had my husband and myself to look after. And I'm thinking to myself, how do women with little children who are working full time, they're in daycare, they're in school, they've got their activities, they've got sport, they've got whatever, how are they doing this? And it just was a real wake-up call to me about, it was really easy for me to go and tell everyone, this is what you need to do. But how? There's 24 hours in a day, and make sure you get your sleep, make sure you get good quality sleep, you know, and all of that.
Well, I do think with the sleep, we have the hard truth factor of looking at your average daily screen time.
Yep. Absolutely.
And just saying, oh, okay. So I keep saying I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. But turns out I'm spending 20 of my life's years on average per human on a smartphone. And look, I work on a smartphone a lot of my work day, so I am right there with you guys. But when it comes to the sleep piece, I think the smartphone will tell us, actually, I could go to bed a little bit earlier. And that's like just a nice little easy win that we can all have right now.
Agree. 100%. And all the people who are saying, oh no, but I'm not tired and I'm not really, it's all habit. It's all, you just take yourself to bed at the time, and yeah. But again, I don't want to, I realize that people have lots of different challenges and things like that, but and you're also, by going to bed earlier, decreasing the amount of the blue light.
The blue light, exactly. It's huge. And Seb's pediatrician, we had our annual review this morning, Layla, you know her well, and it was a fascinating, I have to bring this up because I know you'll love this too. And Seb was like, oh, yeah, that's right. It was brilliant. It was a great team moment, but really collaborative approach, because Layla always puts it in, you know, she's had boys herself growing up, so has a beautiful way of putting things for teens to get it. And it was around the fact that he has to be woken up for school days, but bounds out of bed at 6:30 in the morning to watch his Asian cooking YouTubes that he adores, which, I mean, I'm not complaining because the food he's making at home is delicious from the time he's spending doing that, but also PlayStation. And He's not a huge gamer, but he will spend those early hours of the weekend morning when we're not doing stuff, doing that. And she said, so don't you find it interesting that you're bounding out of bed on a Saturday, Sunday earlier than when you have to be dragged out of bed on the weekdays? And it's because you get to do something completely gratifying and dopamine chasing. So we've put in place, off the back of that appointment, a no tech until 9 a.m. She said, you will not believe how many teens who are dopamine chasers by nature, whether it's ADHD or whatever label or not, they just miraculously start sleeping in and getting the sleep they need. Because it's not that there's nothing to wake up for, but it's just that there isn't the thing that they're hyper motivated to wake up for. And I thought that was that was worth the appointment in itself to really flesh that out. You would be seeing these sorts of examples all the time.
I would. And to be honest, again, there's a bit of a quandary involved as well, because when I first started looking more at the light thing and the sunlight and the importance of that first thing in the morning, it was really interesting because I'm naturally an early riser, always have been. And at this time of year, the sun is rising later. And it was one of the quandaries for me, as similarly as you were referring to, was, now what do I do? Because the first light I see, I want to be the sun, except I can be up anywhere from like 4:30, 5:30.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it's like, now what do I do? Because light. So anything that I do, I can't pick up my phone because that's the wrong type of light. And I'm not really
So you have a rule that you do not look at any kind of light until you've seen the sun.
Well, the only way it can change, and that's not to look at my phone, that's because I'm going to get up and maybe make a cup of tea or whatever, is I have my my blue blocker light, and so I walk around with that.
The little torch.
Yeah. And it's my bedside one.
Oh, the reading light. Yeah, they're fantastic.
And I put that, if I need it a bit brighter, it goes on amber or whatever. And that's but yeah, finding out, well, what can I do? And so I'm crocheting or cooking, but under that sort of light, or things like that, or might do some stretching or finding things. But it was really baffling to me that it was, I can do some work. No, you can't, because you're not turning your laptop on. And I'm not putting my blue blocker light glasses on so that I can do that, because that's defeating, to me, it's defeating the purpose.
It is, but what's super interesting to me about all the things you just listed that you could fill that time with is they all fill up your cup. They're all quite mindful activities, really nourishing for the nervous system, and what an amazing way to start the day.
Absolutely. And I'm telling you, it's like, it has been truly life-changing, and especially I'll just dip into this quickly. So one of my life circumstances is my husband recently passed away. So I'm sort of traversing this whole new season of life on my own, metaphorically speaking, and grief. And I've been super conscious. He was sick for a good period of time before that, and so life for the last few years has been super chaotic. And the whole time I had to be, I did have to be, and I chose to be so conscious of my nervous system, because to me that underpins all our health. Like it's the foundation.
Everything.
It really is. And I know it to be true due to his illness as well. It was just glaringly clear how much that had to do with his illness. And so for me to I don't know, I've just been there. My life mantra has always been, I'm always looked after, life works. And
say that again. I'm always looked after.
Life works.
Life works.
As it works in my favor. Always. Not in the way I might want or have planned, but always much better than my silly little, not silly, but my tiny little human brain could imagine. You know, I'm just such a big connected to something bigger than ourselves that you can call whatever you want to call, that just has my back and will guide me if I allow that without trying to hang on for dear life and control the direction that my little self thinks is the right way. And that nervous system thing is so much about being in flow and sort of releasing the reins. So yeah, so I'm grateful for, and I think it's really helped me dealing with the grief, which is just like a daily thing. You know, there's tears every day. Sometimes I just fill my eyes, and sometimes they're ugly crying. As I told you earlier,
Yeah.
I had a yoga class yesterday where I realized from that we did partner yogaing and being touched that I hadn't been touched in a non-transactional way for years due to his illness. And I'm not talking sexually or whatever either, just so yeah, so that nervous system thing is huge, and I'm so grateful for the fact that I then sort of was understanding about the light and things and started making these choices again, because I'm always looked after and life works for me. So, you know, and for everyone. But
It's such a good mantra, Shalani. I'm totally borrowing it.
it's on my website. It's the beautiful Sue Ho, who does great work. Also, I call her
She's an old she did the Go Low Tox course years and years ago. I love
yeah.
Sue.
And I think once we can have that trust, look, life is not meant to be anyway, we've gone completely off track.
Well, as if we were ever going to stick to the topic.
Really, because I think all of this is so important for our joy and our contentment, and this is what makes our whole organism, our whole body work really well, is, you know, the chemicals that are being released from a conversation like this and from beliefs like this are also health supporting.
Well, and we're not off topic, because if I could read out one of my questions that I had for you, it is: the joy and the spirit is big for you in your life and practice. Is there only so much food and herbs can do? Of course.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah. So and that's not to discount food and herbs and whatever. It's, you know, it's not any of this like throwing the baby out with the bathwater that, oh, that's not, everything is important. It's just where I guess you put your attention and the intention you have when you, so there's a lot of needing a magic bullet or something quick, and I have to tell you that out of all the practices, modalities, whatever that I've taken on over the years, thinking this is helpful or whatever, the one with the quickest response is, and I'm talking days, is the sunlight one.
Wow.
Literally, I mean, even for me to see in my face and in my whole functioning within days of just looking, like getting up with the sun has been, and looking at it. And there was an interview on the radio the other day, and it was about how Australians have the highest rate of allergies in the world.
Yes, we do, per capita.
The professor who was on said, oh, there's these 5 things, and one of them was the vitamin D thing, and the message that we've been given to stay out of the sun and to wear sunglasses, to use sunblock, and all of that, and how that has gone against us for our overall collective health. And I'm like, yay, good. And I loved that she wasn't saying, oh, take vitamin D supplements or, you know, whatever. It was that message has not been good for us. Then literally 2-3 hours later, that might have been the morning, the afternoon, another professor's on talking about how the increase in cancer, and how one of the worst things that's happened, our love of the sun has been so bad for us, and how important it is to wear our sunglasses and put the sunblock on and stay out of the sun and and I'm just like, for a start, I'm thinking for all the people listening, the two
to hear both.
What do we do, you know?
Well, and it's no wonder people are more confused than ever about who to follow, what to trust. Something I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I would love your thoughts on this, is food. And I've started following some nutritionists from different cultures, an African-American nutritionist, an Indian Ayurvedic nutritionist, and and their debunking of a lot of the micro trends in food. You know, you've got to eat all meat because that's the only way that or you've got to be vegan, or you've got to be whatever label you want to put on it. Keto is the only way you can not have mental health problems. We could go on and on. And I think I've been thinking a lot more about Indigenous groups and how further disempowering that is to them to now dishonor cultural foods that have been providing health for many, many generations, and all of a sudden their beans and rice are terrible and evil and going to cause autoimmune conditions. And you just think, wow, we really do go granular against all sense sometimes. You know, I was speaking with a great microbiologist who's going to be on the show soon, talking about how the reason our diets need to get more and more narrow is because we're less and less resilient. You know, we just can't handle we don't have the gut microbiome to handle a beautiful wide variety of plants and meats anymore, depending on which way you end up needing to go. What are you seeing with dietary needs of people? And like, I guess what I also want to ask there are diets that are incredibly healing. We know that GAPS has some incredible research behind it, for example, as one phase though, right? Like the goal is not to then have to eat a very restricted diet forever. It's actually to heal and then rebuild.
Yeah. I did a reel on this just a while ago, I think a couple of months ago.
Oh, I'll share it in the show notes. I'll dig it
Yeah,
up.
I'll link you in it or tag you, whatever the word is. Whole diet thing of like, you know, the right food to eat in the right way. I mean, for a long time now, it has grated on me the fact that we all need to eat a Mediterranean diet, or we all need to eat like the Okinawans, or we all need. And one of the things I've got numerous posts where I've said, you need to look at your constitution, your ancestry, to know, to get some sort of idea of what's going to be right for you. There is no one way, there is no one food. There is nothing about my ancestry that is connected with the way an Okinawan would eat, like that sort of thing, right? So it's not familiar for my body.
I know. I eat purple sweet potato and it backs me up for days.
Right.
Just like,
you know,
yeah, I don't think I'm going to be going for that anytime soon.
and also I think there's been a little bit of the equivalent of poetic license in recommending these diets like Mediterranean or Okinawan, whatever.
Well, you can tell a compelling story so it gets noticed, right?
And all of a sudden, what is traditionally a Mediterranean diet, when you ask a Mediterranean person, is like, no, not really. And many years ago, I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, I've got all the footage. This is maybe 15 years ago or something. I started interviewing nonnas and cities and yayas and all that, who were back then in their at least 70s, or if not older, to ask them, like, to get it from the horse's mouth. What did you eat? How did you eat? How did you get your food? You know, all of those sorts of things. And that they were the facts. I mean, really, you know, right down to this whole, I don't know what, I think your view is the same as mine, with olive oil, and that you can't use it for high fat. And, you know, that's the only oil that they had, and a whole lot of different things like that.
Or for high temperature, you mean? High temperature cooking.
High temperature cooking.
Yeah, that's all we fry in. It's all my family's ever fried in France.
Right.
Or maybe duck fat as well, but ethical issues around most of that and where it comes from. But
But the example I use in my family is that I've got, on my mum's side is Dutch Sri Lankan, on my dad's side is Indian Portuguese. I personally have got that real robust Dutch Portuguese constitution, and that's the sort of diet, and I'm so grateful that that's what I got, because I get to eat all the meat, all the dairy, all the bread, all the and that is what so for me to eat a really vegetable heavy diet doesn't sit well with me.
Mm.
So not that I don't eat them, I do, because I think it's important to be all-rounded. But for me, and I think I might have told the story about when I went on one of the minister's sabbaticals, and it was, for some reason, retreats and things like that are always vegan or vegetarian. And I
Mm.
went to Tasmania. The food was extraordinary. It was delicious, but it was vegetarian, leaning more vegan. And I remember on about day 3 talking to Bruce, who's back in Sydney, and saying it was back when, do you remember Macellaria? I don't know if it's still there in Bondi.
Yeah, yeah.
It was, for those who don't know, it was like a steak, like really good quality meats and whatever, had just opened. And I said to him, when you pick me up from the airport, we're going straight to Macellaria. And he was like, no problem, because he loved it. And because I just felt, I don't know, I just really craved it. Got off the plane, went to Macellaria, and we're sitting there. I can remember it so clearly. My plate's now empty, but I've been going, bop, 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 telling him all about 5 days away and whatever. And he just looked at me and he said, you've changed. And I said, what do you mean? Yeah, I've had a great... No, he said, while we've been sitting here, you've changed. Like, there's something about you. And it was, I got my vital force back. Like, it was like an energy from eating the meat. That's what I need. Now I'm not going to tell everyone else that's what they need, just because but we've got a little bit of that now, of because it's good for me, it must be good for everyone.
Yeah.
Who said that? Bruce, who's so Anglo and like Scottish background, Shalani McCray, also we discovered has Chinese in his great grandmother was one of the Chinese in the goldfields. So our children, we've got 2 children, girl and boy, Chloe and Jake. Jake is more like me. He's got that robustness. He's more that Dutch Portuguese side. And Chloe is like Bruce, which have that more, a lot of that Chinese influence of dairy is a problem for them. And they're a little not as robust, I guess. And that's not to say that all Chinese aren't. It's just that mix of that for them. That's the other thing that happens, that the mix makes a difference as well. We're not all we're intermarrying and
Yeah.
So it's observing how things work for you, not what the latest influencer or fad or superfood or I don't know, nutritionist, whatever is telling you is the right way to eat. It's really, and that's frustrating for people because just, the amount of times as practitioners we get, well, you just tell me what to eat and I'll do it.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. I remember when I started the Real Food Rockstars course, which you're one of the wonderful interviews in. I think that was 2015 or 16. And everyone was emailing me, messaging me, reaching out on Facebook saying, so where's the protocol? Where is the diet plan? It's not that kind of course. I'm asking you to do that work to figure out what it is for you. Because we are just so individual. And I think there's something, you talked about connection as being your #1 word, and connection to self. That hyper externalization of someone out there is going to have all of my answers. It is one of the things that holds a lot of us back from actually finding our answers much faster, because we're not connecting to what's going on in here.
We have everything we need inside us. I think I put that when I put our name, the name of the business, Live Alive and whatever, is that we really have everything we need inside us. And it's just uncovering that. So I'm not one to use the word healing and that we are broken and that we're, to me, a wound heals, as in a physical wound. We don't need healing. There's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing broken about us. Even with traumas, triggers, irritations, whatever it is, it's just, we have it all there. And it's just a matter of getting still and uncovering it. And that, I believe, is what I do. Like people, oh, you're a healer. No, I'm not. You are the only person who can uncover your wholeness and your perfection yourself. But sometimes we need, or it's helpful to have someone who supports us in that, or might guide us in that and bring us back to it when we start to lose our way or go down rabbit holes or whatever. And I think that, yeah, it's just taking that time. And again, as I keep saying, I know that these days it just feels like, my dad and I used to always say about the busy thing, oh yeah, but everyone has the same 24 hours. It's, I think that we all have different pulls and challenges that we
Yeah.
and it's really easy, like it's that whole thing of, well, back in my day, we did.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you know, as anyone I say back in my day, here back in my day, I'm like, well, back in your day, one salary could take 2 kids to private school, so shush.
exactly.
You know, it really has changed, and we have to acknowledge the challenge there of an evaporating middle class. Like, you know, people don't really talk about it, but it is a huge health impact
It is.
that good old Bernie Sanders has been rabbiting on about for probably about 4 decades, warning. But here we are, right? And it is having an impact. So to be kind to ourselves and honor what we can do, it's got to be the start of what enough feels like, so that we're not always chastising ourselves for never doing enough. Because I
Exactly.
think that's also part of it too, right?
I was on a great a mentor for he's like for herbal medicine call the other day, and something he said really stuck with me is he said we were talking about adrenal herbs like adrenal tonics and adaptogens and the right time to use them for cortisol, people with different varying degrees of cortisol depletion and whatever. And he said he talked about the people, and to me it seems to be almost a general thing now, not just people, a certain subset of people who can't function at anything less than 150%, you know? And then we ask ourselves, and I see examples of it all the time of, why am I so tired? Why, what people are wanting a supplement or whatever, because I'm so tired, I'm so flat, well, when you're running at 150%, and there's like a couple of, and again, I need this to be emphasized. This isn't criticism. This is observation. And sometimes, again, as I say, we need someone to sort of remind us. But there's two influencers, for want of a better word, lovely people. One of them I know personally, like not really well acquaintance, who have children and are just doing all the things. And what's attractive about them is because they're making motherhood real, as far as they'll talk about, oh my God, this morning was just manic, this one had this meltdown, da 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 da. And so they're very relatable, right? And talk about in their marriages and whatever. However, they're doing all the things, right? They're running businesses, they've got, books out, or they've got, whatever. And so they're living and flying like interstate or at the drop of a hat and things like that. And I just feel tired watching them. You're doing what? You're doing that now? And I'm just thinking, you're about to come undone big time. And then every now and again, they'll be sitting in their car doing a little share, on a story and saying, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. I'm so tired. I'm just, what's that? Anyone else feeling this? And I'm sure everyone else is too.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just like, hey, lady, just stop so that I don't feel tired watching you. So, yeah, it is. There's so much of that. It comes back to that we're human beings, not doings. And there's not being, there's lots of doing. And am I worth it if I'm not? Am I making the most of life if I'm not? And when I think of all my memories with Bruce and with the children when they were younger and whatever, it's always been, it hasn't been a doing time, it's a being time that are like happy memories of just being together, and a look and a whatever, that are the warmest memories and the ones that
that energize your spirit the most, right?
Yeah. He's looking at me now.
He caught your eye. I love it.
But yeah, so yeah, there's that. And again, bringing it back to your the immune and whatever, it really is so important, because that whole giving 150%, how do you expect your body to function? Like to be well when it's just on all the time, and going back to the sleep, and it's not doing that rejuvenating. And darling little Zali, my granddaughter, she's 4, and last night when I was snuggled up with her when she was going to bed, and she said to me, Tata, I'm not tired. I'm tired, but I don't want to go to sleep. And I said, that's all right, darling. Just close your eyes and rest. Tata, what's the difference between rest and sleep?
Clever little lady to ask that. Well, she's definitely asking all the questions, age.
But yeah, it's just, And really to think about it, even at 4, I don't want, why don't you want to sleep? Oh, because there's so much to do. You know, it's boring at 4, you know, and she yeah.
Well, that comes back to the 14-year-old example of bound out of bed and do things.
Exactly.
Our
So,
kids are noticing it, they're feeling it, they're not, you know, and it's up to us to actually recognize what's going on there.
our little sponges, and it just really now, you know, everyone knows I'm just reveling in the grandparent thing and looking at it and just saying, it's better than parenting, but you have to be a parent to be a grandparent. But
Yeah.
observing and being brought down to earth and like of what's important and the little joys and things like that, that I don't live any of this as a parent. You know, I loved parenting and I was stay-at-home mum because it's all I ever wanted to do was just get married and have children. Didn't care about a career, nothing. And I felt, you know, my first profession was in early childhood education and whatever, and I felt I was present, but I realize now I wasn't nearly. There's questions I ask Chloe often about, what was your experience when when you did this as a child? Because I can't remember, you know, and I think it goes with parenthood. You know, there's so much going on, but it is nice to, I don't know, I wish I remembered more of it. Or,
I'm right there with you. We were just talking, me and my 14-year-old Seb, talking yesterday about some of the cute things the littlest cousin says, how he calls the dog and, you know, other little friends. I don't need help. I'm 3.5. And like, you know, things like that. We were rattling off a whole bunch of things he said off by heart. And I said, sweetie, I know you were adorable and you did exactly the same kinds of things. And I just so wish I could remember what they were. But we do. We're just so involved, I think.
Oh, yeah, I'm distracted, but I've just discovered my computer's just told me that I'm on low battery.
Oh, no problems. I'll edit.
I haven't had
edit it out.
PowerPoint on all this time. Yeah, exactly. It's just so much that we don't remember. And as I said, I don't know if it's a normal thing or because you are just caught up in everything. But then I also think, do we need to be caught up in everything? You know, is there things that can give, and sometimes it needs to be life-threatening things, unfortunately, that make us
jolt
take
into
and sometimes
action.
we still don't learn.
Yeah, I think as a parent of a kid now, something I recognized about 3 years ago was, okay, let's look at the schedule and how enamored are you with each of these things? Are you busting to get out the door for the drum lesson? If you had to choose between the drum lesson and the singing lesson, is that an easy choice? Can you tell me straight away which one you really want to show up for? Singing. Okay, so how much do we like the drums? Oh, it's fun. And then I was like, okay, it's gone. If it ain't a heck yes, it's a heck no. And I think even just removing a couple of hours from your kid's week also removes that from your week.
Yeah.
We don't, you know, don't often remember, and just creating space and making sure we're equal parts. Something I noticed, we were doing a lot of functional have-tos on the weekend and not joyful connecting. So bringing back in barbecues with friends, and, you know, part of that story for us was the nomadic crazy situation we got ourselves into over the mold years through COVID. But to really remember to bring those things in and back and front and center, because they're the things that you're going to remember. You're not going to remember rushing to appointments and Saturday sports, but you are going to remember those super fun all afternoon catch-ups with friends where you all went for a walk in the park at sundown. Like, that's the stuff you remember.
Of course, yeah. And it's even just wandering in, like, I'm in a little unit, I've got a little balcony, but my garden on my balcony is just my joy. And that's so that even if I can't get out for my walk, sunrise walk in the morning, I will sit on the balcony, because just getting that energy of the first light and whatever is really helpful. But I always have an excuse to touch nature in so even it's pulling weeds, I'll never pull all the weeds in one go, so that there's every day I can be touching and smelling and whatever. And that's what it appears I've instilled in my grandchildren, and Zali will come. She knows the names, and one of her favorite things to eat, because what I grow is herbs, and something I really, again, getting back to supposedly the topic they're in, is one of the best things you can do for yourself before anything else of getting supplements and things like that, is growing your own herbs, like medicinal herbs, culinary herbs, whatever, that they all double up. Your mints and your lemon balms and chamomiles and all of those sorts of things. And I've got, obviously, from the culture and whatever, curry leaf. And I did my
that's my favorite thing in the world. I love curry
well,
leaf.
I did my major project whatever it was, in herbal medicine on curry leaf, and I can't, the amount of health benefits, let alone that beautiful smell and the taste and whatever it has. Well, Zali adores going and plucking curry leaves and just eating them straight, and beautiful blood cleansers and all of that. So it's just lovely to be doing, and she'll be like, let's water the garden, Tata, and that sort of thing. And that's time that we're spending together. I'm ticking a box of making sure my garden's looked after, pulling the weeds, watering, whatever, and instilling things like going forward with her as well. And they're the sorts of things that I think we don't give enough value to. We were just in the garden, we just spent 5 minutes on the balcony or whatever with the plants, but what that has given her and myself in so many ways, energetically as well, is so important. And now, and then the beauty of, she's got a sore throat or coming down with whatever, we go and pick some of whatever there is and put it in some water to steep, and she drinks that with some honey. And I'm always, she knows that that's going to be helpful for her and that she had a part in all of that. So she grabbed a whole bunch. I said to Chloe the other day, did you notice the difference in Zali, her whole manner? And she just grabbed some lemon balm. And she always checks with me what she can eat if she's not sure. On the whole, she knows now from my garden. And I thought she was just going to pluck a leaf, and she plucked a whole handful and shoved it in her mouth.
Wow.
And her demeanor the rest of the day, she was chilled.
Yeah, I bet she was, with that much lemon balm. Yeah. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So,
and maybe she knew she needed that. You see dogs going nuts for grass when they've got upset tummies, and I think that bringing that instinct back, allowing space for that instinct to develop, is so powerful.
Doing it from such a really young age. None of it is odd or different, or even with herbs and things. It's just been such a part of her life. Homeopathy, she's a big responder for homeopathy. And so that is all natural to her. So homeopathy is called balance, and then her herbs are herbs. And that's all she's ever known, really, of anything of what helps her is to support her. Yeah.
And so you mentioned homeopathy there. When we're thinking about kids coming down with different stuff, what are some of your go-tos?
Again, as I said, she's a great responder for homeopathy, and I think we're great responders for different things. And because her brother, who's 20 months, is more, he doesn't seem to respond as well, and it could just be what he's had. But anyway, the go-tos, well, you've got your belladonnas for fevers, and your and I'm not a homeopath. I'll just make that clear. And I think that with everything, with your essential oils, with your homeopathy, whatever you really do, there's one level where you can utilize it yourself.
Have a little dabble, and then there's the next level of actual practitioner. Yeah.
And also you have the constitutions, and I'm not across all of those. All I know is that she screams pulsatilla for her constitution, and it has from day one, though that can change. But what else is there? Gosh, I've got a complete blank. Apis for the hay fevery type, or runny nosy type things. But as I said, that's for me, that's not my running in my lane. So things that I've realized work for us, and it's probably not, if I'm recommending homeopathy to anyone, it's more as in, this might be something you want to look at, and these are some people that I would recommend you talk to about it. So yeah, it's, I
Yeah,
mean,
we actually had a
right,
really great podcast with Julia Edgley, who's
right,
a homeopath
yeah,
over in France, and she did a masterclass on here is what you do around infections and this colored snot, and like
yeah,
she went into such crazy detail. So I'll link that in the show
yeah,
notes for
yeah,
anyone whose interest was piqued there and thought, oh, I wouldn't mind learning a bit more about that. Because yeah, it is fascinating. But in terms of herbs, given you're a
yeah.
herbalist, what are some of our go-tos that are safe with kids? Because and a lot of the times, if you're buying extracts that are specifically marketed for kids, they'll already naturally have the alcohol not in there, so
Yeah.
you won't have to worry. But is there anything that is safe for us to sort of pop
Sure.
in the home medicine cabinet without needing a practitioner?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I come to, before anything else, I come to the herbs, the spices, things like that. So I love, obviously we've got the garlics and gingers, we've got lemon, with the herbs, my probably number, depending, so of course it depends on what the condition is. So if we're
Mm,
talking respiratory type ones, I love thyme. So
mm,
growing it, you steep it, all these herbs, you can steep in some water, add honey. I'm not, especially at times like this, like respiratory illnesses and things, but in general too, I'm not a be scared of sugar or sweet or whatever. So the minute the little ones are sick, or including myself, it will be a spoonful of honey. And I,
mm.
to them like it's a lollipop on a spoon, and you tip it over and feel it going down. So manuka or raw or jelly bush, or don't get too caught up with it, because they're all going to have their benefits. Um,
Mm.
and of course, it's about availability and budget and all of that. But honey is great. Lemon, I think I said lemon. Olive leaf, love olive leaf.
Mm.
For, um, for both digestive and for respiratory. What am I thinking of now? I'm getting a complete blank. Um, chamomile, again, you can grow. Echinacea you can grow, but also having echinacea on hand as a spray or in drop. I love for little ones like drop dosing. So just putting a few drops in their water or whatever, and letting them sit. Because there's one of the things we've really forgotten about is the energetics of herbs.
Mm.
So, which works along that whole line of flower essences and homeopathy and whatever. And I think the energetics of things, again, we're talking about our nervous systems and all that is so important. And I think we have to revitalize all of that knowledge and wisdom about how it affects
I
us.
agree. I remember I had always traditionally been given kind of 5 and 10 ml doses of herbs,
Yeah,
pure extract
yeah,
kind of amounts.
yeah,
And then I went when I was really, really sick on the mold front, but didn't even know it was that yet, I think. So it was a really dark, mysterious kind of time.
right.
Saw this very experienced herbalist who was practicing out of the Dimmicks building upstairs. She's old
Yeah,
too. I can't even remember her name. It was like 8 years ago, and mold brain, so forgive me, but she prescribed me, and it was like 6 drops of this and 3 drops of
yeah.
that one, and she made me do the standing balance test holding different bottles and like that whole shebang. And that was actually the most powerful response I'd ever had to herbs after that appointment. So I completely agree with you. We forget the energetics piece.
And
Mm,
that sort of reminds me, when you said the standing, balancing and whatever, too, is another well, I guess it's a modality I've for a long time I've used, things like, and we talked before about, we have everything we need within us, and we just have to uncover that. And so for a long time I was using and still use, and has been quite powerful for me through grief and whatever, tapping, like the EFT
mm.
freedom technique.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's for physical things as well. I used to get a lot of hormonal migraines back in the day. I'm obviously in menopause now, but I still get them, because there was there was also a stress component. And I have found it to be literally, I can't believe, preach thyself, or whatever, teach thyself, is tapping for when I'm getting a migraine, which I probably get only about 1 or 2 max a year now.
Yeah.
And I never go full blown anymore.
Wow.
I agree with you that we nearly always have what we need, and I think life works. I'm always looked after and life works. It sort of happened for me at that time, but yes, going into the what, and I think earlier you mentioned also with diets and like gaps and different things like that too. And my views have changed a little bit on it, only for the strictness of it, and we were already so stressed and all of that. But also, I think it's that whole the beauty of it is the simplifying. And like even in my tagline, I'm simplifying wellness, but unfortunately simplifying and just going with the basics seems to be not valued as and also just what can you bring in that is at hand, that is helpful as well. I don't know, it's just
No, I don't think you don't know. I think you know exactly, because I hear this time and time again. I've come to my own conclusions on this as well, and it is, you can take every supplement, you can know every snip, you can try every protocol, but if you're not waking with the sun and getting regular movement and connecting with people you love on a deep level, connecting with yourself in stillness and mindfulness, and ditching the junk, which we can all agree is the primary, and that could be junk light, minimization, could be junk food, could be junk media that just makes you scared and afraid, all of the junk. Unless we do any of those things, I mean, all the genetic SNP testing in the world isn't going to help us.
Yeah, agree.
So I think,
and that's one of the other things you mentioned in wanting to talk about is like supplements and testing and knowing I'm not that person. Well, it's not my first go-to, and I do have a reputation for that. And that's one of the things that, to me, it doesn't make sense when you come for a consultation for the first time for me to give you supplements or send you off for tests when we can make lifestyle adjustments first, or dietary or whatever first. And in the majority of cases, things are resolved or improved, and then we've saved money, time, resources. I mean, the resources used to make supplements, to go for tests and things like that are huge, that we forget about as well. And we've saved on all of that by making those adjustments. Or at least we know, all right, this works, and it's given us another example. And so what are those things? Well, they are those things like, well, what are we doing with sleep? What are we doing with light? What are we doing with our diet? What are we doing for ourselves? What are we doing with nutrition? All of that. And again, that's that simple stuff, but not necessarily easy for everyone. But biggest bang for buck, for no buck.
Yeah. And I think that's the immune system lesson right there, really. It is. I mean, we just didn't call it that in all the things we were talking about. And yet, they're the things that we keep having to come back to and prioritize however we can to strengthen the entire system.
It's really, you mentioned it earlier, just going back to, and we sort of went off on a tangent, not talking about what the right diet is and all of that, and going back to the Indigenous and all of the cultural stuff and all of that. And it's really, when you say like getting confused about what is the right thing and all of that, for me, every time I'm exposed to or whatever, like a new diet or whatever, be it carnivore or whatever, I think to myself, or a vegan diet or a different modality or whatever, I think to myself, what did people originally do? What did we do when we didn't have testing and we didn't have supplements and we didn't have, all of these things? What was the way they were living and what was normal for them? Now, there's not one way, because this is the other thing I'm really strong about is with paleo and all of that, right? There is no one way, because traditionally what the environment gave, the food the environment gave you in the Arctic was going to be very different to the Sahara. So there is no one way. And so we can't be saying, yes, but Paleolithic man did this and this, or ancestrally this is the way it was, because there wasn't one way. Because
for who?
Gave
for who and where were they living?
Exactly. In different light and different everything. So again, it is that coming back to the basics and trying to intuit yourself.
Yeah, it actually exhausts me that beyond ditching junk food, how much time and effort and energy is spent on trying to convince everyone to eat a certain way.
Exactly.
You know, I think there are different ages, stages in life, and we have the convenience of hacking and tweaking probably to a greater result than our ancestors, simply because we do have what we want whenever we want it. And I get that science is valid, but at the same time, you know, if there are certain foods that light you up and make you feel like you can just bound off the dinner table and go play games and be full of beans, then that's probably the best food for you. Unless it's like super processed, high carb,
And
sugar
once in a
kind of
way, it's
stuff.
not going to kill you, but you know,
Yeah.
the other thing, never ever put guilt, like,
Mm.
whatever, with food, or junk for that matter, if it's a one-off or very rare. But I think that science thing is really important too, because science only works because in standardizing us, and we can't.
Yes. No, we can't.
and
And certainly now with research institutions, you know, you find out there's a dean who eats a certain way, and therefore the research can actually be skewed based on who is the dean of the university these days,
every now and
or
again,
which company is funding it. And
Exactly.
it's not that we then completely discount it, it's that we put an appropriate level of weight on information that comes to light, rather than going, oh my gosh, there's a headline and I need to change my entire life.
Yeah.
Mm.
And the other thing on that too is the seasons of life that we live. So
Yeah.
that's going to change what suits us and what doesn't as well. And
Yeah.
in my case, I'm now in this season. And going along with that and thinking, well, I'm now in this season, and that's why, not why, but it could be a reason why this food no longer sits well with me, or this activity or whatever no longer brings me joy, or wow, now I've embraced this, or, you know, whatever. And that's like with each season, taking inventory, you know,
Yeah.
like being able to sit with yourself for a little while and go, right, well, this is where I am now, and this is what's going on for me now. And that's, again, I talk about the luxury of it for time and whatever, but so important. Otherwise we get that whole, the body's whispering and now it's screaming.
Yeah, that's it.
Screams inconveniently. So.
Very inconveniently when it screams. Oh, Shalani, such a pleasure to chat with you and bring this, of course, spiritual medical melange to the podcast. It was never going to be one way or another with the breadth of experiences you have, both as, you know, an interfaith minister, herbalist, naturopathic practitioner. I just think, and then your life that you always bring, like your wisdom. So I really appreciate you and your work. It's such a joy to chat.
You're very welcome, and thank you for having me on. I always love our chats, and I just love the trust that you give me to share with your community. I really appreciate that, and I don't take that lightly. It means a lot, and I appreciate it.
Well, my favorite thing to make is a quality recommendation, and I always love recommending you, that's for sure. So thank you.
Thank you. And one of the things you did talk about earlier was,
I hope you loved today's show as much as I loved bringing it to you. I want to remind you that if you are someone who craves a low tox community that is judgment free, full of empowerment, has health professionals and building health professionals that can support you, as well as me in there answering questions multiple times a week, I want to invite you to join the Low Tox Club. For the price of less than a cup of coffee a month, you have an annual membership for $49 Australian, so it's about $30 US or euro, that allows you to have a member masterclass every single month with a health professional or global expert from the podcast, where we have them to ourselves for an hour to ask questions and deep dive further. You have the beautiful supportive chat group. You have Q&As with me answering questions. We read books and talk about them, and a whole bunch more. You can head to lowtoxlife.com, hit the explore tab, and join the club is the very first option on that list. Of course, we have over 10 evergreen courses that you can jump into anytime, whether it's navigating everyday low tox swaps with our Go Low Tox signature course, whether you have kids and you're wanting to know how to best support them with our Low Tox Kids course, whether you're planning a family and looking at a healthy low tox preconception journey, reducing inflammation, especially the chronic kind, with our Inflammation Ninja course, many other courses. You can again head to lowtoxlife.com, hit the courses tab, and you'll see all of the options, which includes a business course, my Low Tox Method program. A lot of people don't know, but I was doing a lot before starting Low Tox Life in 2009, and I was a business consultant across hospitality, health, retail, and cosmetics. I have been in business consulting for a very long time, so I absolutely adore helping people move into the low tox space or develop their low tox businesses. So that's a way I can support you. And then, of course, there's our wonderful social media communities at Low Tox Life on Instagram, and of course, the website with over 250 gluten-free recipes, blogs, downloadable PDFs to help you navigate wanting to get rid of synthetic fragrances in your school or office. I could go on. So head to lowtoxlife.com, see what takes your interest or fancy, and thank you so much for being a part of our podcast community. I love reading your reviews. I appreciate every follow and subscribe, and I want to just remind you to finish off that if there's anything you heard that you found interesting from a medical or scientific perspective, it is intended as education only. Please always chat to a health professional who knows you and your situation best. I'll see you next week. Bye.